By all means, move at a glacial pace. You know that thrills me.
Oh my gosh, it's Meryl Streep. This is Karen from San Francisco.
And this is Alex from Los Angeles, and welcome to Movies That Shaped Us. We are two longtime friends who grew up on opposite ends of the globe with very different backgrounds, but we're both shaped and are still being shaped by the movies we see and love. In this bonus episode, we'll cover a filmmaker, actor, director, screenwriter who's shaped our love of film. And this is a big one for you, Karan. So yeah, let's dive into Meryl.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I should, drink a glass of water before I get into this.
Yeah, go
I
for
did.
it. Okay, perfect.
So yeah, there are few people, at least in my life, who have sort of transcended into that iconic status. Like people who I actually, if I met them in real life, I don't know what I would do. And I think probably Meryl is the only one in that category. Everybody else, as much as I admire them and appreciate them, I would be fine, I think. But this is a different ball game. So why is that? I think, like, maybe let me start with how I even came to it first. My relationship. So I think the first movie, which is such a strange thing that I saw of her, was with like actual intention and noticed that, oh, who is this person, is actually Devil Wears Prada.
Oh.
The quotes that we just rattled out. And
Yeah.
and then within quick succession, I watched Doubt. I also watched Julie and Julia. This is all in a span of like 3 years. And stating the obvious, but immediately the range of this person was on full display. That how do you go from, a comedic, dramatic performance, which is Devil Wears Prada, to Doubt, which is kind of dramatic and scary, to Julie and Julia, which is light and heartfelt and romantic. Totally different people, some real, some not. And I just was like, how can one person inhabit all these people? And then, of course, that kind of then led me to go back and watch a lot of her movies. And again, stating the obvious, but I think her skill and her versatility kind of became the brand right off the bat. And, you can measure this in sort of more quantifiable ways, such as accents or how she, plays with her look and what have you. And all of that is definitely on display. But the thing that always captured me was the inside to out transformation. Like this was always a different person, not just the way how they looked and they talked and they sounded and they moved, but how they how they existed in the world. But at the same time through all of that, it was still Meryl. Like even behind prosthetics and accents and makeup and what have you, you can still see her intelligence, her wit, her humor, her dedication. All of that is very much on display. And at the same time, there are many, many great actresses. You look at Elizabeth Huppert, or, any sort of foreign actresses. You can pick whoever you want, who might be considered quote unquote a better actress because they're more real. I think what's different about Meryl is that she's also very, very watchable in that movie star kind of way. You can't take your eyes off her, because there are many other people who might be brilliant actresses and they totally inhabit and make you believe that this is who they've become. Meryl does that, but is also very, very watchable, and the camera loves her. I think that's what's different. And there are not that many movie stars in the history of movie stars whose brand is versatility, and total transformation. And they're quote unquote actors. There are only a handful of these people who are movie stars purely on the merit of the job, which is to transform, and yet you see them do what they're doing, and they're not just, they're recognizable, but they're also unrecognizable. So I think that's what makes her so special to me. And then, as I we've talked in our previous episode on Tom about you know very little about their personal life, and I'm sure we know very little about her personal life as
Yeah,
well.
that's a
But
really good point. Yeah.
what we do know is, a marriage of over 40 years now, four kids who all seem pretty sane. They're in the arts world, but they're not big names. They're not just Nepo babies. They're doing their own thing in their own right. And the way Meryl shows up, the way she interviews, the way she talks, every award speech, that sense of grace and dignity and commitment, but also a lot of humor. I think that's the other thing, as I started to watch more and more of her off-screen appearances, which also is a performance, and she would be
Totally.
the
Right.
first one to say that. And in
Hmm.
fact, she has said that I'm sitting here in an interview chair. This is probably not the real me. But the fact that she can say that out loud, I don't know, has always made her very relatable and approachable. And who doesn't admire somebody who just loves their craft and
Right.
are brilliant at it, so, but also have a sense of humor about it. And that's sort of my relationship, admiration, and awe of her. What about you?
Yeah, like in terms of your statement about her being a movie star and an actor, I think is definitely how I have always viewed her. So for me it was interesting. So I knew of her as one of the best actors around when I was kind of coming into film in the 90s and as an early teenager. So I'd stumble upon stuff of hers, like, Kramer versus Kramer or Sophie's Choice, that I'd watch just because these are movies I should watch, and she
Mm-hmm.
just happened to be in them. Deer Hunter is another one.
Mm-hmm.
But I never really tracked her performances in her career on its own until the first, newer movie that I saw that she was in was Adaptation. And that
Mm-hmm.
was a film that I remember seeing that in the theater, like, oh yeah, no, she really is still like decades at that point, even into her career, delivering on that, what exactly you just talked about. She's a movie star, but she's actually just not just an actor, but an actor too. So
Yeah.
like her craft is what makes her a movie star, which is sort of the opposite of what a movie star is supposed to be, right? Where it's just about their persona that you love and you see their persona in every movie, but she disappears into these parts. And that
Mm-hmm.
was the first time I remember really kind of like hitting me like, oh yeah, no, she is not like the other movie stars or even actors out there. She's got both, which is the rare thing about Meryl. And still to this day, she's able to deliver top-notch performances.
Yeah. And I guess to build on what you just said, that like the longevity of this career, especially in an industry where as you get older, it's harder to find roles for women that are,
Right.
meaty and are multi-layered and what have you. And I think she, in addition to all the other accolades that she's accumulated, the highest
Mhm.
nominated person in the history of the Oscars
Right.
ever, she's also kind of forged this path for somebody older and in their later career.
Hmm.
And in a weird way, she became a bigger box office draw in her later career because she was not that person.
Right.
She entered movies pretty late. She came from the theater scene. She was not an ingenue. She never got those parts because she was older, and she
Hmm.
didn't pursue them either. For
Hmm.
her, being in the movies was to, play with the looks and her accents and try different sorts of things. And so it's funny that come Mamma Mia and Devil Wears Prada and Julie and Julia and all these movies, she became a box office draw in her 60s and 70s, which not only introduced her to a whole other generation of movie going fans, but also the people who grew up with her or knew of her as this kind of great actor. Finally, it sort of cemented that, yeah, Meryl can do anything because the one thing that she had not conquered, I think, was that box office blockbuster
Hmm.
thing, which she also did. And I'll repeat it again in her later career, which is unheard of. People are box office draws earlier in their lives or maybe in their mid career, not in their later career for sure. So it's amazing how she, and of course, there's a lot of luck and all sorts of factors
Right.
that
Right.
have led to this great career, but it's pretty amazing how she's been able to navigate that.
Yeah, totally unique. And I wonder, just as I'm, scanning her filmography, that it might have been Devil Wears Prada, perhaps,
Yeah,
that was that tipping point for her to realize, oh, she's
totally.
crossed over to now being a box office draw. And
Yeah.
not just, though, I want to see the Meryl movie because she's going to put a great performance, but I'm going to see there's like a Meryl Streep quote unquote movie because
Yeah.
that movie was a huge hit. she was a major part of that. I mean, fantastic film, fantastic performance. It really comes down to her and what she's able to do. And then you get the Mamma Mia's and all the, I don't like cash in on her
Right.
stardom films. Not that I'm knocking the films, but like that phase of her career is odd to have that happen at the end. Usually you'd be a box office draw and then try to get your acting credo,
Right.
established later. But she did the opposite, and that's very unique and shows how unique of a star she is, a movie star and an actor she is, that she's able to pull that off.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think the Devil Wears Prada is special because of that. Because
Mm-hmm.
the movie is very good. It's very fun, and if anybody else would have been in it, it would have still been very entertaining. But any normal movie going person, they don't even have to be a cinephile, can spot the difference that if
Yes.
you remove Meryl from this movie is not what it is. And
Right.
it's because it's packaged in a fun, entertaining, blockbustery way, but what's anchoring it is this rich, multi-layered performance. Like she's doing all the things that she always does
Right.
in a movie, which is like totally disappear, transform, and live and breathe the life of this person that she's portraying. So you get to see that, and that elevates the entire movie. And that's the other thing, right? Like a lot of great actors can be scenery chewing, and Meryl has done those parts too, where she is the
Right.
scenery
Right.
chewing person in the movie. But I think in this movie, it's sort of just a perfect match and balance of everything, where she is the scenery chewing person, but she's also letting the whole movie shine and elevate, and everybody looks good
Mm-hmm.
because of that. Um,
Exactly. Right.
and I guess that's the other thing which I've noticed about her as she talks about her craft and how other actors talk about her, because she brings such a sense of commitment and realism that I think she forces other people to bring their A game as well, which is
Mm-hmm.
why everybody has chemistry with her on screen. I always feel that it's so important because acting in so many ways is this reacting. I mean, they say like acting is reacting. It
Right.
is sort of a two-way thing. So if you don't have chemistry with the actors that you're with, I think none of it is believable.
Right.
And I think because she forces other people to bring their A game, the chemistry that she has with pretty much everybody that she's worked with in a romantic way or in a non-romantic way is always true and deep.
Haven't seen all of her films, so this might not be the case, but this is at least my perception that even when she's in a movie that might be like quote unquote like built around her, she
Right.
still feels like part of the ensemble, not in like a negative way, but in a look, she's just another actor. She's
Yeah.
not taking over the film, or her star power doesn't push out the other performances. She just makes them better. So she's
Yeah.
part of the cast. She's not taking over the film. That's just my
Yeah.
perception. Again, I haven't seen all of
Yeah.
her films, so I might be wrong, but I think that is a skill that she does because she is that good of an actress and a movie star. And it's that balance, again, that is so unique about Meryl, that a movie star would just take the movie over, right? Just a poster, Meryl's head, that's all, Meryl in this, whatever. Like she's never really gone down that path because she
Yeah.
is an actress that is part of an ensemble. Whoever she's working with, it doesn't matter, but she's organically working with those other actors and making them better, and just part of the tapestry of the film.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Which is why a lot of people would say that she's actually a character actor,
Right,
trapped
right.
in the
Mm-hmm.
body and a career and a mind of a movie star leading person. And if you look at these later year performances, they're quite character actory, actually. From, Miranda Priestley to Julia Child
Mm-hmm.
to Sister Aloysius. Oh gosh, I remember all the names of the
Oh man. Yeah.
I just outed myself pretty
Uh-oh.
badly.
I think you outed yourself many episodes ago. Don't worry
True,
about that. This is
true,
not the
true.
yeah.
Yeah. As opposed to, not to compare, but I love Al Pacino. We'll probably do a similar episode on him, but
Yeah.
he is the example of the person who will, I think, especially in his kind of mid to later career, the whole movie would be around him,
Right.
with
Right.
him at the center of it, with all the scenery chewing things,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody else is like a bit part.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Which, that's what movie stars do.
Yeah.
And so that's fine. That's what movie stars do. And Meryl is a movie star, but she doesn't do that. And that's what I think makes her very, very unique in the history of Hollywood. So speaking of her filmography, any
Yeah.
yeah, should we Yeah, what is your, so we talked about the movie that sparked it for you. Maybe we'll go back and talk more about her, the beginnings of her career. Like, what are the sort of the standout performances for you?
Yeah, so kind of how we did with Tom in our first episode in this series, I think it's fun to look at her career in decades and phases as well.
Mhm.
So, 80s is when she, or I would say late 70s to early 80s is when she shows up on the screen. And I mean, nobody can have a more banging arrival
Oh
with
yeah.
movies like Deer Hunter and Sophie's Choice, Silkwood, like Kramer versus Kramer, like all
Yeah.
these Manhattan, all these movies, one after the other, kind of underline what we've been talking about from the beginning of this episode, which is this is a versatile, super skilled, transformational actress, but at the same time a movie star,
Right
and
out of the gate.
right out
It's
of the gate,
crazy. Yeah. You,
it's
you look at this
crazy,
beginning of her career, and I'm like, designed to be missing earlier roles. Like,
right?
it's almost like she comes right in. It's like Deer Hunter, Kramer vs. Kramer, Sophie's Choice. Like, those are iconic performances, and it's in her first like 5, 6 films. Incredible.
It's
Yeah, there was no
unbelievable.
working actor phase in here. She just right on the scene, boom. She does it.
It's crazy, and of course, back-to-back Oscars, and which is why she didn't doesn't win for a bajillion years after, because people just gave her everything. Who wins multiple Oscars, in the first 5 years of just entering the movies?
Hmm.
And not only are these movies great performances and critical darlings, but they also huge hits. Kramer
Yeah.
versus Kramer is the number one box office movie of its
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
which is
Crazy to think
crazy.
about.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so I think from this, like we already covered Sophie's Choice in one of our episodes previously on kind of acting.
Hmm.
I think to me that is still probably one of the best recorded performances in movie history by anybody.
Agreed.
So that and Kramer versus Kramer and Silkwood as well. I have like a pretty soft spot for that movie. Would be my favorites from this kind of early era. What about you?
We talked about Sophie's Choice. For me personally, the film has aged very poorly, but her
Yeah,
performance is what is not aged
yeah.
at all. Like, so to me, that is the quintessential early Meryl performance. Again, surprised to say this is early because it's just what an incredible performance where she just totally disappears in the role. And Crane vs. Crane is another film that I just really think is just a fantastic movie. That is her going up with Dustin. At that point, he'd had 2 decades of
Hmm.
on-screen performances. He was a huge star, but she can just go right there toe to toe and make him better in
Yeah.
that film. I think that is touching on something we talked about earlier, where she elevates other people's performances, and it's crazy to say that she elevates Dustin, who is I think one of the better actors of all time, but she
Yeah.
does, and their chemistry in that movie is so critical. And I think those are the two for me that stand out in the early parts of her career.
I couldn't agree more. All right, so the next phase is the 90s phase. And I should mention, leading up to the 90s phase, in the 80s, she has many, many more of those transformational performances, Out of
Mhm.
Africa, Cry in the Dark. They're all brilliant performances and movies that are, serious
The
and
dingo
what
ate my
have you.
baby.
I
Cry in the
know
dark. That's
exactly.
maybe makes me laugh every time. About that.
Yeah, it's sad. That's what that movie's become now.
I
But
know it's a
I
mean movie.
know
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
a meme movie now.
yeah.
But I think the 90s Meryl is an interesting one where I think at some point people were like, lighten up, Meryl. Like, we are done with these serious, actory, accenty parts where you're
Hmm.
playing some foreign women, like we need you to have fun. And this is the time when she and her family they move to LA and she makes these, quote unquote, more Hollywood mainstream movies like
Right.
Postcards from the Edge and Death Becomes Her and She Devil. She's trying some things,
Yeah.
River Wild and some of them work, some of them don't, especially at the time they were kind of panned. But I watched these movies much later in my life, and to me, these movies are super fun and amazing. Like I love Death Becomes Her and
Hmm.
River Wild, like watching Meryl have fun and sort of, trying to be the movie star.
Right.
And I
Right.
don't think it worked in the time, but I think it in retrospect, it all adds to her movie star persona. And I'm very happy that we have these zany, fun movies from Meryl.
Yeah, yeah. This I think is a time, like you said, where she's trying to really stretch herself in different performances. For me, the standout is probably The River Wild, which I
Yeah.
think thinking back on it was perhaps the actual first Meryl Streep movie I probably saw because I
Huh.
saw this as a kid and I didn't,
Right.
and I think maybe this actually speaks to her, what we were talking about, where I don't remember her performance overpowering the rest of the film. She was just part of this cast of a movie that was, it's a fun little tight thriller. Kevin
Yeah.
Bacon does a great job in it. She does a great job, but I wasn't thinking like, oh, this is like a Meryl movie. I just watched this kid be like, this is a really fun, little thriller that is, a little bit of edgier see thing. I think she does a great job of not putting in that hammy, showy performance, which she
Yeah.
very easily could have done. But because she's an actor first and then a movie star, she did an actor performance in that film. And I think that movie is still a fun, again, like not a 90s little family thriller. Recommend
Totally.
watching it if folks haven't seen that yet. That movie is really fun.
I totally agree. And once again, Meryl doing all of her actory things where she like learned how to row the thing and
Yeah, exactly.
it's all real. Like she
Right.
does all of her stuff. And that's the other thing, like just the way we talk about Tom, like he literally puts his life on edge.
Hmm.
I think Meryl does that from like a character persona
Right.
standpoint.
Right. Right.
That whatever this person has to do, I'm going to go and learn the violin. I'm going to go and learn how to sing the most difficult areas, out there in the coloratura and mess them up, what
Yeah.
have you. So this case, she's, doing this.
Yeah.
So coming out of the 90s, because these movies were sort of they sort of worked and mostly didn't, she sort of back to her serious performances, and
Hmm.
this is where we are back to kind of One True Thing and Marvin's Room, and these are Bridges of Madison County, which I think is probably one of the best romantic old school movies that have
Mm.
been made in modern times. It's just an epic movie, so this would be my standout until she gets to adaptation, which
Mm.
I think, like you mentioned up top, kind of through the meandering sort of, fun Hollywood movies to the serious movies with the accents and such, she comes to this place, which is like, okay, yeah, oh, Meryl is great.
Right.
I think it's a bit of a reaffirmation and reintroduction in people's minds. What about you? Any movie stand out for you in this time period of late 90s, 2000s?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like I mentioned at the top, like adaptation. Like this was a time when I already was loving film. Like River Wild, I was just a kid watching a movie rented from Blockbuster, what have you. But this was the one I was like, oh wow, like she is just putting in a performance that no one else could do what she needs to do in that film. That movie is actually just totally incredible. One of my favorite
Amazing
films of all
movie.
time. And everyone's really working on the top of their game in that film. That performance to me, I was like, oh wow, like she's still delivering decades in on what she can do.
Yeah. And then, of course, we come to the late 2000s, and that's when kind of the Marathon that we've been talking about really kicks in with Prada, Mamma Mia, Dow, Julie and Julia, Fantastic Mr. Fox. It's complicated. Like all these movies are absolute bangers. They're entertaining, but they're also great, actory roles. It's
Yeah.
like the perfect balance. There are some afterthought movies from the late 90s that still drop in this period, like The Rendition and Lions for Lambs and
Ugh, Life for
such,
Life.
which are not great. But I think this blockbuster period that we touched on before kind of really launches her in Maryland to kind of superstardom. And she's now globally known as a great actress, a great movie star, and that's that.
Oh, definitely. And for me in this, so we touched on it at the very beginning. Like Devil Wears Prada is like a signature performance because that is the perfect marriage, I think, of movie star selling the film. People see this is, Meryl movie, but she's still an actor in it. She's making room for what Anne Hathaway's doing, which Anne Hathaway's great in it too.
Yeah.
And so she's able to do both, and the movie's just incredible. Like one of my favorites. We talked about it in an earlier episode, like you said earlier, but yeah, that to me, this is the signature Meryl as a movie star movie for me.
I think so too. And then I think the 2010s up to now have been sort of more of Meryl as the character actress, I
Hmm.
think, kind of post that blockbuster period that we talked about. And I think one theme that I should mention is that Meryl has always stayed with the times, right from like movies that and themes that mattered to the public.
Hmm.
And she really sort of I don't know how calculating she was in that sense, but I guess she was.
Yeah,
So,
I'm sure she was. Yeah.
going back to the early 80s, 70s, like, divorce was a big theme to, come to now, where she's made movies like The Prom or
Hmm.
Don't Look Up. So themes of planet conservation to representation, equal rights, like there's always something kind of thematic about her career choices that she wants to be part of the conversation that's
Right.
happening. And Tom didn't do this in our first episode in the series, but Meryl actually has been pretty fluid when it comes to jumping back and forth between big screen movies to, Netflix originals to, HBO Max movies, what have you. Like she's been, and even TV for that matter, Big Little Lies or what
Right.
have you. Like she's really kind of done it all in the last, I would say, 10 years, which in some ways one could argue might have diluted her movie star persona. But I think she's in a different league altogether when it comes to movie stars who have nothing else to nothing to prove. So I
Right.
think she's used that cultural cachet and love pretty well in the streaming era to try different things and work with different people, newer people, older people. Like I love her run with Steven Soderbergh in this
Oh,
era of work, let them all talk, and the
yeah.
laundromat, which on the face they are interesting, experiments like Soderbergh loves to do always. But I'm so great that they've had this amazing collaboration, and over time I think these two movies will be looked at very fondly.
Not a fan of the laundromat, but
I know.
maybe it'll age better over time. But yeah, I think because she is an actor first, she can get away with doing these again streaming shows and TV, and it doesn't dilute her brand, for lack of a better word, because
No.
she's a great actors go to TV now. That's where they go. That's the exciting place to be if you're a great actor, and so many of them have done that. And because she's an actor first, she's still a movie star. She can go back and forth, and it's not like, oh, I already saw Meryl in Big Little Lies, or I don't need to see, her in this film that's coming out. No, like she's because that's why she's unique, because it allows her to be an actor first still, even though she went through that movie star phase, like you said. And for me, this is the period of her career where I'm less kind of familiar with. I think she was doing a lot of stuff that I wasn't that interested in, and then the things that she did do, things like the Spielberg movie, like The Post, not a
Hmm.
big fan of. Laundromat, not a big fan of. I did really like Let Them All Talk. I thought that was
Yeah.
fun. But yeah, this is sort of like she's going back to the I'm an actor thing, and she's just choosing stuff that I don't wouldn't normally gravitate towards. But I think the fact that she can be that flexible is what makes her Meryl.
Yeah. I mean, it also speaks to the state of the movies, right?
That's true.
Like
That's definitely true.
her brand of movies are in trouble, they have been for the last, like, 2 decades, I would say. So although I still love The Post, and Little Women is amazing, so it's fun to see her collaborate with, you know old master auteurs, but also young people like
Hmm.
Greta and what have you. But yeah, going forward, like I'm a little concerned because she hasn't really made a movie since 2021. Like, Don't Look Up was the last movie, and there's nothing else that she signed on for.
Mm.
All she has is a bit appearance in the Selena Gomez Martin Short TV show,
Hmm.
which is like a little bit part, I'm guessing. But
I would assume,
there's
yeah.
nothing on the docket. So I hope she's doing okay health wise. That's
Mm.
where my head went first,
Oh,
since
really? Okay.
typically she makes a movie, every couple of years. She's been quite prolific actually throughout. So I don't know, or maybe she's just waiting for the right thing or what have you. But selfishly, as an Oscar nerd that I am, I want her to win a fourth.
You
She
do.
has to beat
Yeah.
Katharine Hepburn's record. I mean, it's a shame, like, of all the 22 or however many nominations she's gotten, like, we could have given her at least one more deserving one from the past, but we
Yeah.
just were like, nope, all of 90s, all of 2000s, we just were like, nope, we're not going to give you anything because you already got two.
Right.
And I mean, The Iron Lady is a great performance, which we just covered in our previous episode,
Hmm.
but it's a much maligned movie, and not something that people. It's sort of a career Oscar at that point, because people are
Right.
like,
Right. Right.
"Oh, where you've been churning out amazing performances, so here you go." But I want her to win a fourth one. I don't care how she does it, but she has to.
I mean, I think you're on it. Like you're speaking for what the Academy and the industry wants to. I think it's going to happen
I
for
hope so.
sure. It's just whether when she decides to take on the role that will give her that, she'll get it. I think that's sort of no question, to be honest. For me, I'm hoping that instead of my mind doesn't immediately go to, is there a health problem? Like maybe she's just enjoying being retired, like not retired, she's not retired, but enjoying her life and not working so
Yeah.
much and being so busy and focusing more on the other things outside of her career that are
Mm,
important to her. And that's what, some of these actors work all the way up until the end. And maybe it's because of the
mhm.
love of the craft, and I hope it is, but sometimes it's just because they need to, continue getting money and things and getting roles. And I like it better when the actors retire and then live another 15 to 20 years and just enjoy life, like a Gene Hackman or a kind of like Jack Nicholson's doing to, or
Mm,
like what Sean Connery did. Because she seems like a really cool, nice person. Like I wish that
yeah.
on her too, if she wants it, right? So maybe that's what she started doing, stepping back a little bit, focus on other things, and when she wants it, she'll get that other Oscar. I think that's going to be I think that's a guarantee, honestly. It
Yeah,
really
I
is.
hope so too. But yeah, I think it's probably just also a function of the kind of movies that are being made and what she
Yeah.
might be into, right? So
Hmm.
it'll have to be it'll have to be the right thing, essentially. So my hope is that, she played, I know the Oscars or the Academy, they love to reward like a real person portrayal, a biopic-y kind of role,
The
which,
Iron Lady, she did.
I
Yeah,
know
she.
she's already done that. So
Right.
if that's what she does and that gets her fourth, I'm fine. But I would prefer that she actually didn't do that
Hmm.
because she's done that before.
Right,
I
right.
wish she played like a real person, you know, maybe something lighthearted. Uh, that would be fun to see her do and for the Academy to recognize that.
We'll see. I mean, I think it could happen. Like you said, she's already done the I play a real person.
Oh, a bajillion
So,
times.
right. So she's
No,
gotten that locked up. And it's probably gonna be some supporting actress, sort of quirky older woman role thing. We'll
or
see.
a
We'll see
lead
what happens.
actress.
Oh, okay. You're pulling
Even
for the
that's what
lead, huh?
I'm rooting
That's what
for.
you want.
Yeah. Fun to chat about my favorite actor,
Yeah.
and sort of what has shaped really my love for movies. Like she's such an important entry point into me caring about movies in such a big way and also appreciating the art of acting and transformation. So it was really fun to talk about that.
Yeah, for me, I'll have to say that not only, yes, outside of this podcast, you've helped me appreciate Meryl, but as we've started to do this over the last year or so, I've definitely grown for more of an appreciation over her as a movie star, as an actress. So you've definitely helped bring me into the Meryl camp over the last couple months for sure.
That's good. Well, I hope you all listening also enjoyed our discussion and maybe some of you have torn their hair apart with me going on and on about Meryl over the course of this this podcast. But we appreciate all your feedback and love as always. We are available on all podcast platforms, including YouTube, where you can find our reviews for each of the movies we've covered. Please rate and review us because that really helps us get discovered, as always. And until next time, that's all.